I've never really been someone who believed in fear for the sake of fear. You know the kind. Urban legends, ghost stories, things that go bump in the night. I've always kept my feet firmly on the ground. I'm the kind of person who checks reviews before booking a restaurant, let alone a place to sleep. So when I found this cabin listed on Airbnb, secluded, 5-star rating, nothing but positive feedback, it seemed ideal. A weekend to disconnect. No emails, no city noise, no one needing anything from me, just trees, silence, and a stocked fridge. That's what I thought I was getting. What I got was something I still can't explain. And I've tried. I've tried to chalk it up to stress, fatigue, the power of suggestion. But there are moments I replay in my mind where none of that makes sense. Moments where the floor felt like it was breathing, where my own phone recorded things I never saw, where I'd wake up convinced someone had just left the room. I didn't go looking for trouble. I just wanted to be alone. But from the moment I stepped into that cabin, it felt like I wasn't. There's no way to tell this story without sounding unwell, and I've accepted that. But for the sake of honesty, I'm going to walk you through everything, exactly as it happened. Every sound, every smell, every unexplained moment. Because if I leave anything out, even the smallest detail, I'm afraid I'll start rewriting it in my own head. And that's what scares me most. How easy it is to forget what was real, and what was just the story I told myself to sleep at night. This happened in late October, just over a year ago. I had just finalized my divorce. I'd been living in a tiny apartment above a coffee shop that never closed. I was running on caffeine, barely sleeping, and felt like I was unraveling in slow motion. A friend, well, my therapist, really, suggested a change of scenery. I didn't need to be around people. I needed silence. So I found a listing. Small wooden cabin, upstate, a few hours from the city. Looked cozy, clean. I checked the reviews. Over 100 of them. All positive. One reviewer even wrote, "The most peaceful sleep I've had in years." I booked it for 3 nights, Friday to Monday. No Wi-Fi. That part I actually liked. But something kept tugging at me from the moment I hit confirm. I remember the host messaged me within minutes. It was polite, professional even. But there was this one line at the end that didn't sit right. It said, "Please arrive before sundown. It's just better that way." I thought it was about the roads. Maybe they were narrow or unpaved. But when I arrived, I saw what they really meant. I left just after lunch on Friday. The drive was long, but familiar enough at first. 2-lane highways, gas stations with handwritten signs, the kind of middle-of-nowhere towns where people watch you pull in and keep watching until you leave. Eventually, GPS took me off the main road entirely. The last 30 miles were nothing but switchbacks through a thick stretch of forest that hadn't seen daylight in weeks. The trees were dense, almost pressed together, the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. That's when my phone started acting up. Signal dropped. Music app crashed. Maps froze and then rerouted me. Twice. Still, the directions were clear enough. The host had sent an address and a note to follow the wooden stakes painted white. I did, and sure enough, there they were, spaced out every 100 feet, leading deeper into the woods. By the time I reached the cabin, the sun was gone. It hadn't even been that late, just after 5 maybe. But the trees were so tall, they swallowed the last of the light before I'd even parked. The cabin was smaller than the pictures made it seem. It looked older. Still well kept, I'll give it that. But aged. Like it had been there far longer than the Airbnb listing claimed. The wood was gray with weather. The windows looked hand-cut, uneven around the edges. There was a small porch, a single rocking chair, and one of those old wrought iron lanterns hanging from a bent nail beside the door. It was already lit, flickering. At first, I thought someone else must be inside. But the driveway was empty, and the host had said they'd leave the key in a lockbox on the side of the porch. Only, when I reached for it, the front door creaked open. No wind, no movement, just opened, as if it had been waiting for me. I should have left then. I know how that sounds, but I should have. Instead, I stepped inside. The air was still, colder than it should have been. There was heat. I could hear the faint hum of it, but the space felt untouched, like it hadn't been used in weeks, maybe months. Inside, the place was rustic but cozy. Exposed beams, a fireplace stacked with fresh wood, a small kitchen, a single bedroom, and a trapdoor in the floor I assumed led to storage or a basement. There was a guest book on the table, one of those fake old leather-bound ones. I flipped through it casually. A lot of names, handwriting that seemed oddly similar across entries. Different names, different cities, but the handwriting, the way people described their stay, it felt rehearsed, recycled, too clean. Still, I dropped my bag, walked the perimeter, opened a few drawers. No cameras, no listening devices. I always check. Paranoia is a habit I picked up after my divorce, reading every privacy policy, covering laptop webcams. I wasn't about to let my guard down completely. In the bedroom, the bed was made perfectly, almost too perfectly, like hotel room perfect. Corners tucked, no indentations. And on the pillow was a single mint, which struck me as odd. I hadn't seen that in any of the photos. There was one window in the bedroom that wouldn't open, painted shut. It faced the woods, nothing but darkness beyond it. And then, as I unpacked, I realized something else. There were no curtains in this cabin, not on a single window, no blinds, no shades, just clear glass. Anyone outside could see in at any time. But from inside, once it got dark, you could see nothing, just your own reflection hovering over the black. It gave me the strangest feeling, like I was on display. Still, I told myself it was just the setting, the isolation, the silence. I poured a drink, turned on some music from my laptop, and sat down to read. I had been in the cabin for maybe 30 minutes when I heard the first sound. A thud, just one, muffled, below me, like something falling or something being moved. I froze, waited. Nothing else. Then again, thud, a little louder, and it came from beneath the floor. I stood there, listening, completely still. The sound didn't come again. I figured it might have been a pipe, or something settling. Cabins creak. That's what they do. It's wood on dirt. Old nails shifting. I told myself that once, then again. Louder in my own head each time, just to keep my feet from moving toward the trapdoor. Eventually, I poured another drink. Read for maybe an hour. Tried to ignore how often I kept glancing at the floor. At some point, I realized my laptop had gone to sleep and the music stopped. When I tapped it to wake it up, the screen just blinked once. Then again. Then black. Battery was full. I'd just charged it. But it refused to turn back on. No signal on my phone either. No bars. Not even the faint emergency calls only text in the corner. Just the clock and the wallpaper staring back at me. That's when I noticed something else. There were no outlets in the cabin. None that I could see anyway. Not in the bedroom, not in the kitchen. The lamp on the table was battery-powered. So was the radio I found in a drawer. Everything was running, but nothing was plugged in. It didn't make sense, but I was tired. Maybe I missed something. That's what I told myself. I say that a lot in this story, you'll notice. I went to bed around midnight. The cabin made noise. Of course it did, but this wasn't the normal kind of noise. I kept hearing movement, light and fast, like something darting across the ceiling or between the walls. At one point I heard what sounded like breathing, soft, just beneath the bedroom window. When I turned off the lamp to see outside, I saw nothing. Only the glass. Only my reflection. But the breathing didn't stop right away. It faded, slowly, as if the person, or animal, was walking away. I didn't sleep well. My dreams were fragmented. I'd wake up certain that the door had opened, that someone had walked in and was just standing over me. But when I'd sit up, the room would be empty. That happened twice, maybe 3 times. Each time I convinced myself it was sleep paralysis, stress, maybe the whiskey. But something about that night didn't sit right. When I finally woke up for good, it was almost 11 a.m. The sun was out. Bright. Too bright. Like the sky was trying to overcompensate for something. And the cabin felt different. Like it had been touched. That was the first morning I noticed the chair. The rocking chair on the front porch. When I arrived, it had been pushed to the far side, facing the wall. Now it was pulled forward and turned slightly, facing the trees, like someone had been sitting in it, watching. I stood there, just staring at it, trying to remember if I'd moved it the night before. I hadn't. That's when I heard it again. The same muffled sound from beneath the floorboards. 3 quick thuds. Then silence. I figured maybe I just needed to get out of the cabin for a bit. Clear my head. See some people. There was a small town about 15 minutes back the way I came. 1 main street, a gas station, a diner, a general store with old postcards and a dusty wire rack. You know the kind. The kind of place where people know which cars don't belong. I stopped at the diner first. Ordered black coffee and a plate of eggs I didn't finish. The waitress was older, quiet, but polite. She asked where I was staying. I told her, just casually. Oh, that old place? She said it like I'd brought up a piece of gossip, not with alarm, just curiosity. Didn't think anyone still rented that out. That sentence sat with me. I asked what she meant. She shrugged, said she hadn't seen anyone stay there in a long time. Told me the woods out that way made her uneasy. Said her uncle used to hunt up there, but always felt like he was being followed. She didn't elaborate. Just refilled my coffee and walked off. I left the diner with this itch I couldn't reach. Like I'd been told something but only heard part of it. I walked across the street to the general store, grabbed some supplies, flashlights, extra batteries, a padlock. I don't know why the padlock, just instinct. The guy at the register rang me up without saying much, but when he handed me the bag, he looked me right in the eye and said, "You staying alone?" I said yes. He nodded, then hesitated. "If anything feels off, just leave. You don't need a reason. Don't wait around for one." That's all he said. I drove back to the cabin in silence. No music, no GPS, just the sound of the tires on gravel and that phrase repeating in my head. You don't need a reason. Don't wait around for one. When I got back, the front door was open. Just slightly, not wide, not kicked in, just ajar. Now I'm careful. I lock up. I check the latch, the knob. It was locked when I left. I was sure of it. Inside, nothing looked out of place, nothing missing, nothing moved. But it felt wrong, like something had been inside and left before I returned. There was a faint smell I hadn't noticed before, like old water, wood that had been wet too long. It was subtle, but there. I checked every room, even pulled up the trapdoor, just stairs down to darkness. No light switch, just cold air. I closed it again, and this time I put the padlock on it. That night, the host messaged me again, their first message since I'd checked in. It read, "Hope everything's going smoothly. Please remember to leave the lights on downstairs. All of them." There was no reason to have any lights on down there. The listing didn't even mention a basement. I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, another message came in. This one shorter. Just, "Please don't move the chair again. It's important." That's when I realized something. I hadn't moved the chair. I stared at that message for a long time. "Please don't move the chair again. It's important. It's important." I went outside. The porch was completely still, cold, even with the sun barely down. And there it was, the rocking chair, pulled out again, facing the tree line. I took a photo of it, just to prove to myself I wasn't imagining things. Then I moved it back, all the way against the wall this time, turned inward. I didn't respond to the host. I should have. I think part of me wanted to see what they'd do next. I locked the door, checked the windows, pushed furniture against the front entrance. I don't know why. I just needed to feel like I'd done something. That night, the noises returned. Only this time, they were louder, not scratching, not settling. Footsteps, clear, deliberate, moving from one side of the cabin to the other. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding a flashlight in one hand, and the only heavy thing I had in the other, a cast iron skillet from the kitchen. It felt ridiculous, like I was overreacting, but every few minutes I'd hear it again, wood creaking under weight, not randomly, rhythmically, like pacing. I didn't sleep. I barely moved. Around 3 a.m., I noticed something strange. The flashlight started to dim, even though I'd just put in new batteries. So I grabbed the second one. Same thing. By 3:10, both lights were almost completely dead. And then, the floor creaked, but this time from inside the room. I couldn't see anything. I just froze. There was no sound of a door opening, no footsteps approaching, just that single creak. I sat there in total darkness, holding my breath so tightly it hurt. I waited for something, anything to happen. And then, from the foot of the bed, the mattress shifted, just slightly, the way it would if someone had pressed down on it with one hand. That's when I moved. I jumped up, threw the lamp across the room trying to find the switch. Nothing. No light. Total black. I backed into the corner and stayed there until morning. When daylight finally came, I checked every inch of that cabin. The front door was still blocked. Windows were still shut. The trap door was still locked. There was no one there. But when I walked out to the porch, the chair was facing the woods again. That morning, I packed. I didn't care about the reservation. I didn't care about the refund. I just wanted to leave. But as I loaded my bag into the car, I noticed something else. The tires. Both rear tires were low. Not flat, but lower than they should have been. Low enough that if I hadn't noticed, I might have broken down halfway through the woods. There were small punctures, clean, uniform, like someone had deliberately let the air out. I filled them with the emergency compressor I kept in the trunk. Then I got in, started the engine, and drove. No music, no GPS, just instinct. I didn't look in the rearview mirror once. The moment I got back into town, real town, with people and reception, I pulled into a grocery store parking lot and turned my phone back on. No new messages. Nothing from the host. I opened the Airbnb app, scrolled to my reservation, and it wasn't there. It was gone. Not just the messages, but the entire listing. No cabin, no host profile, no reservation history. It was like it had been deleted. Wiped. I checked my email. The confirmation email was still there, but when I clicked the link inside it, it just said, "This listing is no longer available." That didn't make sense. Listings go down sometimes, sure, but not in the middle of a stay, not without warning, and not with every trace of the host removed. I contacted Airbnb support. I explained the situation carefully. I didn't mention the photos. Not yet. I just said that I had concerns about the property, that there may have been unauthorized entry, that the listing was suddenly missing. The support agent was polite, apologetic. They said they'd escalate the case. 2 hours later, I got a follow-up email saying they were unable to locate a listing associated with my account. No record of the host. No support could be provided. It was as if the cabin had never existed on the platform. I drove to the police station next. I told them what happened, or tried to. I left out the more surreal details, just stuck to the facts. Someone had been inside the cabin. The host made strange requests. The listing was now gone. The officer at the desk took notes, asked the usual questions. "Did you see anyone? Any signs of forced entry? Any physical evidence?" There weren't any good answers. He nodded, handed me a form, and told me I could file an incident report. But because there was no damage, no injury, and, technically, no crime reported by the property owner, there wasn't much they could do. He told me to keep an eye on my bank accounts, to change my passwords, and to maybe avoid renting isolated places alone. That night, I tried to find the cabin using satellite maps. I retraced my drive on Google Earth, and I found the road, the turnoff, but not the cabin. The clearing was there, but no structure, no foundation, no porch, no rocking chair, just trees and dirt, like it had never been built. I've never been able to explain what happened. Not fully. Not in a way that satisfies anyone but myself. Was it a person? Someone with a twisted obsession? Or something else? Something darker, lurking beneath the surface of places we trust? I don't know. All I know is that some places are not meant to be alone. Some invitations aren't invitations at all. And when you ignore the warnings, the unspoken rules, you may find yourself somewhere you don't want to be. Somewhere far from safety. That cabin, that chair, they've never stopped following me. I don't know if I'll ever be free from it. But sharing this, telling the story, it's the only way I've found to keep the darkness at bay. Thank you for listening.